SportsFlossGloss
What's up, everybody?
fans, friends, community. We told you we had something special for you, and we came with it.
Exactly. We did not let you down. We are super excited to have someone that I would still consider to be somewhat of a friend, just one of the nicest, sweetest people I've ever had the opportunity to meet, but also a phenomenal athlete who currently is a starting point guard for the Connecticut Sun in the WNBA. Jasmine Thomas is joining us here today. So thank you so much for being here, Jazz.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm real happy to be a part of it.
Yes, and let's not forget that Jasmine also is Duke sociology. Whoop whoop. So we hold it down for Duke sociology.
I'd like to be in that club. I was a Soc minor, so
okay.
If you want to just
okay.
Affiliated, supporter, ally, whatever you want to call me. So throw me in there.
You got a little toe in.
There we go. Well, I will say Jazz played at Duke all 4 years, started all 4 years, and I just remember going to so many games and thinking, if we're in a jam, if it's getting close to the end, we got a couple minutes left, we're down a bit, get the ball to Jazz, she's going to make something happen, and I'm going to feel good about the results. And 9 times out of 10, that's the play. It worked, and we ended up winning. So she's just one of those people that, as a fan, I always trusted to have the ball in her hands, and it's so exciting to watch and to continue to watch. So yeah, so thank you for all that you did for Duke basketball and that you continue to do for women's sports in general. So it's an honor to have you up here.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, so Navette, you want to kick us off and dive in here so we don't keep her too long? She is overseas, and we appreciate that she's working with us with the time difference.
Yeah. All right, so Jasmine, you know all about your great basketball greatness history. Gatorade State Player of the Year. You're a WNBA All-Star 2017. You just made it to the WNBA Finals. So we wanted to know what started you on your basketball journey. What made you think, oh, this is me. I can make it. I know I'm good, and nobody's going to stop me.
Honestly, it didn't really start like that. It started as just a hobby. My brother was playing, and I was actually that kid that was sitting at home reading. That's all I wanted to do, but I was a natural athlete. So my dad had me racing against people in the neighborhood. Like, it was his, claim to fame, having me beat other people's kids in a race. And of all the sports, like, I was never interested in anything until my brother started playing basketball. And instead of running around with the other little kids, I would actually sit and watch his games. And I was like, Dad, I think I want to try. Like, what, is there a team that I can be on? And when I first started playing, it was just fun. I was making friends. Most of my friends growing up were my cousins. So that was the first opportunity for me that I started making friends outside of family. And by the time I got to high school, I got real serious about it. Working toward a scholarship, knowing that, being one of the first people in my family to graduate from college, that was a big deal for me. So knowing that basketball was going to be that ticket for me to do that, I started to take it very seriously. And by my junior year at Duke, I knew I could play pro. So that's kind of how my journey went to being a professional basketball player.
Yeah, that's so awesome to hear because I think a lot of the talents that I have, some of them are athletic in nature, not good enough to be playing anything professionally. But then I'll think of a lot of the academic talents I have came from having older brothers and wanting to do everything that they were doing, similar to what you're saying. So I really blossomed and flourished academically early on because I was much younger not much younger, about 2 and 3 years younger than they were. But when they're in the first and second grade and I haven't started school, I'm right there learning all those things with them. So when I do start, I'm kind of at a level above the people who I consider to be or who actually are my peers. So that resonates with me a lot. That's very cool to hear.
Yeah, same with me. Even though I didn't go down the athletic field, my brothers used to have me racing little boys in the neighborhood and wrestling little boys in the neighborhood. Like, I bet Sonny can beat you and all that. I remember it clearly. So maybe that's why I steered away from that, because I felt like, maybe that wasn't the path for me, wrestling with little boys in the neighborhoods. If I could be more dominant as a girl. That was
Well, and I think you've had a phenomenal career thus far within the WNBA itself. I mean, you started in one place and got traded to another team, and it kind of seemed to me really flourished with and so the work that it took, even after being traded mentally, physically, to get to where you and the team made it this year.
Yeah, I feel like, now that I'm older, I'm a vet, I'm experienced, and I see the younger rookies coming in, and I see how the journey of most people in the WNBA has gone. I feel like I really am like a living testimony to the true, authentic nature of being a WNBA player. There's that 1% is like, those are the players that you see that have the straight and narrow. They get drafted to a team, they become a franchise player, they stay in that organization for their entire career. They get the media publicity, they get the, everything is geared toward that top player. Well, the way my journey went with being drafted in the first round, but not the straight and narrow. I was traded because of a multitude of things, whether it was my performance on the court, whether it was coaching changes. I made it to the finals in 2013, played a lot of the minutes that led that team as a point guard, and still ended up getting traded. So it's a business. There's so many other things that affect you as a professional athlete that I feel like my journey to being where I am, and that comfort, and that, like you said, flourishing with Connecticut, it was a process. And I feel like a lot of players in the WNBA go through that process.
Yeah, and I think that just speaks to your resistance. And it takes a lot of fortitude to stick it out, and especially with the conditions and the pay that was previously surrounding the WNBA. It can be hard for most people to stick it out just because of those things. But now that we have the new tentative collective bargaining agreement, I think a lot more people will be able to have the same journey, or be confident, or to pursue their dreams, knowing that they have that support when it comes to equitable salary and quality of life. So just talking about the collective bargaining agreement, and how in this moment in time in women's sports, we have U.S. soccer, we had U.S. women's hockey, all these other women's organizations taking a stand for equal pay. And did you guys in the WNBA, did you feel like you were part of a moment in women's sports where you feel like, if we take the lead here, maybe we can make it better for young girls behind us? Or was it just, we know this is what we need right now for the WNBA?
We absolutely felt that.
So how long have you guys been working on the changes?
Yeah, I mean, it has been a long time coming. I feel like with just like the viewership, with, like you said, with women's hockey, women's soccer, with other, us sticking together as in women's sports and creating a movement, we've kind of felt this momentum coming over the last few years. We didn't know how much we'd be able to get done. We have a very, very excellent executive committee in our Players Association. They did a phenomenal job in really advocating for us and pushing and not budging. I feel like in the past, it was kind of, we felt like we had our hands tied. We didn't want to lock out, because we know that there are a lot of people that rely on this WNBA income, even though there are others that know that they can go play overseas. Everybody can't. So, having to deal with a lockout is not something that we've ever wanted to do. So I feel like we felt like our hands were tied a little bit. We couldn't push too much. We didn't know how much the league would compromise with us. And I feel like we got to this point where we were just like, you know what? It's not just about money. It's not just about salaries. It's about the entire experience. And I feel like when you see that press release and you see all the things that have changed from the old CBA to the current one, to me, I was thinking like, I wonder how many people are probably like, whoa, we didn't even know they didn't get their own rooms on the road. Like the smallest little details that, change the experience for a professional athlete versus an amateur athlete. Like a lot of us, we would talk about when we got in the league, like, whoa, it was actually better in college. Like all the resources that you had, the way that you traveled, the gear, the following, the tournament, how the NCAA tournament was like, it felt like so much attention and media coverage was around it. Everything was, different. It's a shock when you get to the WNBA. So, to see that we've come to this point where that gap is being bridged, it really feels good. And I kind of get emotional a little bit because I'm like, I'm actually living and still playing to witness it, because for the longest time, we didn't think that, we didn't think it was going to happen anytime soon. So I'm extremely honored, proud, and happy that I'm part of this movement.
Yeah, that sounds so great to hear. I think it's a great thing that has happened for all of the women that are in the WNBA. And to Nivette's point, I'm hoping that it will spark some momentum in the other areas for women's sports. And you mentioned something that I'd like to kind of touch on with you for a little bit, just talking about that transition or pipeline, if you will, from college sports to now in the WNBA. I mean, obviously you're a vet, and so you can't talk about it from a personal experience, but how do you think this changes that transition period from the young college athletes who are graduating this year, next couple of years, and making the decision to become a professional basketball player, knowing that they have all of this support around them and all of these other the things that you just talked about that was so great about being a college athlete, that they now can continue along that path and being a professional athlete?
I mean, just being able to actually make a career out of it, like, being able to only play in the WNBA, that's an opportunity that they have, to have an income that they can actually support their lifestyle just through the WNBA. That's something that we didn't have. When I was coming into the WNBA as a rookie, I knew for sure that I was going to be considering playing overseas. That was the way it went. That's what, players before me were doing. That's what, players have been doing for years. So it was just kind of like, this is what you do. You have those other players who are able to get enough in endorsements or have, maybe start some business ventures, have other things that they can do instead of playing overseas. But for the most part, that was the way it went, play a year around. And I feel like what athletes are doing a better job at, because of the social media boom, is branding themselves earlier. So, you have these top athletes coming out of college, entering in the draft or becoming rookies or, whatever. And they've already created a name for themselves that speaks for them outside of basketball, outside of their sport. And I feel like with the new CBA, that's what that's an attractive athlete, because when you're looking at the pay scale, yes, the salaries have increased, but in order to have the top salaries, it's more about branding and your performance on the court. You can be a core player, you can be a franchise player, you can be someone who is significant to your organization, but still not be someone that's gonna acquire that top compensation that'll get you to that 500,000. So I feel like, it's now allowing athletes to have a hand in the business, whereas before everything was run by the league, by the owners, by the GMs. All the decisions were, pretty much just up to what they wanted, and now I feel like you can use your own brand to acquire some more compensation for yourself.
Right. So have you heard like buzz in the league about people who are thinking about giving up the off-season cycle of going overseas and playing because of this new agreement? And for our audience who don't know the particulars, the new CBA is going to raise median salaries from the WNBA, which are currently under $80,000 to around $130,000. So that's a big bump just for median salaries. So, do you think that's going to be an immediate change for veterans who have been in the game for a while?
I can't really say. I feel like, when I think about it as a whole, I think I can see both sides. I can see the pros and the cons. Yes, for for the older players like myself, I feel like those who are 8, 9+ years in the league, it does look very attractive to have that salary increase, to also have the added benefit of the off-season funding, the off-season, starting, whether it's internships or I know it says something about like coming up with some opportunities for us to work and get an income and certain things that they can get partnerships with, I'm guessing. But that looks good for older players. But what I also know is when you become used to the lifestyle of playing year round, when the top percentage that are really making a significant amount of their living overseas, it's going to be hard to let that go. And there's more to it than just the WNBA is trying to prioritize the WNBA. They want us to only want to play in the WNBA, which is understandable. That you have injuries that are happening in the off season. You have people coming late to camp, people missing games, people leaving during the season to go to their national team. So it's understandable for them to want that from their side. But as an athlete, you can only play basketball for so long, so your mindset is, your insurance is to make as much money as you can in as little time as you don't know how long you're going to be able to play. And I feel like that's where we're going to run into some issues if Europe doesn't compromise. Like if Europe and the WNBA can't compromise and figure out a way for the seasons not to overlap, you'll see some issues with this CBA for sure, because now you're really asking people to make a decision versus before it was like, I could stay home, but I'll just miss a few days of camp and come in, so it's now over time, I think within like the first 2 years of the CBA, there's going to be like significant penalties for doing that. So it can go both ways.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and you kind of make a good point, and something that I know will be interesting for us is to talk about what that calendar year for you all typically looks like. Obviously, I know it's going to vary from player to player depending on the teams that they currently play with in the WNBA and the teams that they potentially are contracting to play with in Europe. But for those people who don't understand that timeline that you're talking about, what does that look like for you as someone who's done both for quite some time?
Yeah, if I had even bring it back to being a rookie, so you finish your collegiate season, especially if you go into the postseason in April. Training camp starts at the end of April. Okay. So you go directly. Some are able to go to graduation. Some miss it because they want to try out for their teams. But you go directly from playing, graduating, straight into a WNBA season. No development, no, nothing like that. There's no off time. You go directly into a professional season. Then, so if you're starting there and you embark in this career-long year-round playing, you go from May until October is the finals. And then the European season starts the first week of October. So either you miss some games, you miss some of, it depends, because overseas you can play in just your domestic league, or you can play in the domestic league and a European league, which is Euro Cup or Euro League. So depending on what kind of team you're on, you miss significant parts of the season. But so that's WNBA May to October. Then that is overseas October until May. So for instance, my departure date from Poland this season is April 30th. Training camp starts April 26th.
Wow.
So it's actually year round. The breaks that you find are, for instance, national team breaks. In November, there was a week where, and we call them breaks because they are, but most people don't have a break. They go to their national teams and they compete to play in these tournaments to qualify them or give them a chance to play in the Olympics. So there are breaks for some, but not for all. So we literally play year round. It's not like there are a couple months in between each season. No, they overlap on both ends.
Wow.
Wow, yeah, that's so demanding. So I think that speaks volumes and gives a little context to your previous answer of why it does seem to be something that's appealing, because sure, maybe you can get a break, but at the same time, you have this compact time that you're able to play the sport and to make the money that you're going to make and do what you're going to do in your career. But yeah, that's blowing my mind.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. No downtime, recuperate your body or anything like that.
None at all. And I mean, the reason I started, and I kind of did this on purpose, starting with from when we graduate from college, because if you're looking at the WNBA and the NBA alongside of each other, there's so much opportunity in the NBA. Of course, they have more resources. We understand that, but there's so much opportunity coming from an amateur to a pro to develop. Whether it's the G League, whether it's going on, they go on these like workouts. They have like months where they just get to go to teams and just work out and have them tell them things that they need to work on with their body, with their skill sets, with their, anything to get ready to be a pro. We don't have that. So that's another thing that I feel like, makes us all that more incredible, is that you have these young players coming into a league playing against some of the best women that ever play this game. And it's hard for some, some have that time. It takes them 1, 2, 3 years to transition and get comfortable. And then, others, it's like they can jump right in, not miss a beat. And then there's some that kind of, they're out of the league. They're only playing overseas. They develop doing that. And then later on, maybe 4 or 5 years down the line, then they get their first opportunity in the WNBA. So it's really so many different stories to being a professional women's basketball player. And I think it starts from that simple, like, you go from your last college game directly into training camp.
Wow.
You play your first pro game a month later. It's like, I don't know, not designed properly, but it is what it is. Because of that summer season, we have no choice.
That's crazy. I'm just trying to wrap my head around that.
Yeah, and I saw too that also the new CBA adds in the even more playing time, even more stress on your body with the Commissioner's Cup, the in-season competition. Do you know anything about that? It sounds like what Adam Silver was trying to push in the NBA, and they had a lot of pushback from the players. So it seems like they're trying to pilot it in the WNBA. Do you know anything, or do you have any thoughts about it?
Yeah, I do know. I actually understand that a lot better now, because at first I thought the same. I thought, so basically they got the design from the European season. In each country you play a cup. Some, I know Russia has like a super cup. Some countries have a different variation of it, but for the most part, it's a tournament that is built in based off of the standings at that time. In points, it could be anything, but it's a built-in tournament for the teams to compete for a cup title. And with that title usually comes some form of compensation for the team. So that's that model they're taking and bringing it to the WNBA. But because the WNBA season is already so compact, it only adds 2 more games.
Okay.
So I believe we play a 34 game season, and now it's going to be 36, or maybe it might add 4. It might be 38. It doesn't add too many more because we don't play a tournament. That's the difference between overseas and WNBA. There's going to be 10 games that are already on the schedule. And those 10 games go toward the seeding for the cup, the Commissioner's Cup. And I guess the top 2 teams play for that, for the top 4 teams, however they decide to do that. And what I did see, because the schedule has been released, this is how I put this information together. What I did see is that this year it's the Olympic break. So in the month of July, the season is going to be shut down. So we don't have the All-Star this year. We just take that month, and most players go, because the thing about the WNBA is it's not just the U.S. women's national team. It's we have European players, we have naturalized players who also have commitments to go play on these European teams. So the league, it wouldn't be possible for us to even continue playing. So that Commissioner's Cup would take place during that break.
Okay. So it would be the players who are not participating in the Olympics would stay.
For the most part, I feel like that's how it's going to happen. Even if I don't know, even if for some reason it happens like toward the end of the break when those players get back, I can't possibly see them.
Yeah,
no,
right.
I'm pretty sure it'll be those who didn't play.
Yeah,
and I think I saw somewhere that there's some compensation for that for the team that wins.
Yeah, I saw it's $750,000 in prize money.
Okay.
So I guess they'll be split equally among players.
Yeah, and I imagine, it just seems like, again, a lot of things to incentivize the players, which is always a good thing. And Jazz, you touched on this a little bit earlier, but just to throw out some other things that this CBA looks at is not just the compensation and incentivizing, but looking at quality of the travel. And it's something that I never really thought about a lot because I'm not a tall person. I'm never really super concerned with like leg room and space and things like that. So just seeing this and having been pretty good friends or really good friends with a number of basketball players when we were at Duke and hanging out with them and seeing just how different things impact them and thinking about the fact that all of you all fall into that status of being gifted in the height department and just not having accommodation of certain types of accommodations when you travel and the accommodations when you're staying in hotel rooms. I mean, things like that would seem second nature to me as part of your profession, right? I mean, part of your profession calls for you to travel and part of it calls for you to stay overnight when you travel. You would think that those types of accommodations would have previously been there, but they weren't. But that's great. And then also looking at maternity leave and childcare stipends, that women in general have other for their family. And it seems like a lot of that was taken into consideration when the CBA was drafted and approved, making sure that you can become a mother if that's something that you choose to do. You don't have to make a choice to say, oh, I can, but I have to wait until my athletic career is over. I mean, you have the childcare stipend, you get full salary while you're on maternity leave, 2-bedroom apartments for players that have children. I mean, all sorts of things that people don't necessarily think about. So I think it's going to have a positive impact, not only on the careers of everyone in the WNBA, but everyone who's thinking about that coming forward or going
For sure.
forward.
And it was extremely, the thing that stood out to me the most was the $60,000 compensation for family planning. So, I mean, that I wasn't even, like, that was so proactive and ahead of anything I was thinking about, because you just naturally think of that as something that's, it's just on you. You really just assume that it's like, well, if I'm going to keep playing, like, I might run into these fertility issues. How long, what age, like,
Absolutely.
So for our committee to be just thinking ahead and outside of the box, that is just amazing. It makes people want to play long careers.
I agree. I mean, I kind of want my job to take these things into consideration.
Right, exactly. That makes an engaged employee, like you're getting the most out of your people if you're showing that you care about them. So I think it just makes for better play where people know that the league has some places value on their life and
for sure
their quality of life after they play. So I think that's just
and we can't leave out the fact that how diverse the WNBA is. There's a lot of gay couples, gay marriages, and to have that as a resource shows their support of all of our lifestyles, and that it means a lot for real. Like, it's extremely significant.
Absolutely. And I just see this CBA as being something that is so very progressive and things that, I was only half joking. I think they're things that all people, all backgrounds, all diversities, all sexual orientations, and then you have those within your working environments, right? So I think management at any type of company could really take something away from this model that the WNBA is creating, because I know for a fact that there's some things here that a lot of my friends in the work that they do, they don't have these protections for them, if you will. So thinking about family planning and things like that. So it definitely strikes me as something that's very progressive and is an example and can be an example for even people who aren't on the basketball court.
Right. It's a very Google type of move there. So
absolutely. Absolutely. That and if I can get them to do that and get some nap rooms at the office, I think we'll be in.
Nap rooms, So I guess we're kind of winding down, but I had one question before we move into Fast Five about Kathy Engelbert, who was just named the first WNBA commissioner. So previously, people in that position were presidents, and I wonder if maybe her role as a commissioner led to this more progressive CBA, if they gave her more authority to speak from the league and not just be so dependent on the NBA or on owners.
I honestly wish I knew more about that to tell you. I'm not sure how the responsibilities changed. I'm not sure if it was just a title change. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I do know that, she works closely with our Players Association, with our executive committee. That's NECA, that's Leisha, that's Janae, Deladon, that short list of players that make up that committee. And I feel like they could tell you more about that. But from what I know or what I see, I feel like it's more just her business background. I think, her marketing and the things, I can't remember the company she came from right now. It's slipping from my mind.
She came from one of the firms, yeah.
Yes, and they said that she had a lot to do with, rebranding them and starting programs with that company and making a lot of change there. So I feel like everything that she was doing with them, she's coming into a whole new, women's sports is just a different beast, but she's equipped to handle it. I feel like she's going to embrace that challenge. She's going to have the women's athlete in mind, not just the business in mind. And that's what I feel like we need for sure. And it's no shade to the previous president, especially because, Lisa Borders is a friend of mine. And she also is a phenomenal woman, phenomenal business person, and has great experience with Coca-Cola and everything. She brought the Atlanta dream to Atlanta. So, she's someone that I have a ton of respect for, who I thought could have did great things for the WNBA as well. But, she had other things that she wanted to do. So I just feel like with the movement, like we've talked about, and advancing women's sports, and, not just being grateful for what we have and not being afraid to speak up and demanding more because we deserve more. I feel like Kathy's coming on board at a good time.
Yeah. Well, it's so exciting to see where the WNBA is heading. Like the future is just going to be so bright. I mean, it's going to do more for the popularity of the game and for bringing in people awareness for people who, because this CBA agreement has been all over the news. People are tuning in. Like I saw it was on GMA. Robin Roberts was like shouting it out. So I mean, this is just epic.
And make no mistake, that's all strategic.
That
is all,
I know.
In all of our communication, we're all one unit, and that Players Association, our union, does a great job in making sure that, no one's missing emails. We're all over the world, and everybody is locked in, because it means that much to us, not just for the WNBA, but, like you said, if we can do it in the WNBA, we can make room or pave a way for other women's leagues to be able to do the same. And with like the Players Tribune doing that, I don't know if you saw the tea with them where they had, various women's athletes from different sports kind of on a panel, just having conversation just about, real issues, but also, the misunderstanding that people have from what we want versus what we deserve. I think conversations like those, exposure like that media coverage is extremely important.
Yeah. All right. Well, we thank you so much for your time. So
this is fun.
Yeah. So what we are going to do now to wrap us up here is we're going to do what we call the Fast Five. So this is the fun part that I was foreshadowing for you. And so we're just going to throw 5 questions at you. We're going to have you pick who you think is coming out of certain leagues and winners of certain games, things of that nature. And we're going to throw them at you, and just whatever you think is the we'll go forward. And don't feel bad if you get it wrong, because right now, Nivette is 3-0 in all picks that we've had. I'm 0-3. So, you know, sometimes you're on the bad end of that. But in any event, we'll start with the first one. So we had Championship Sunday yesterday. Super Bowl pick, 49ers or Kansas City Chiefs?
Kansas City Chiefs.
That's a great answer.
I don't think you could go wrong with either one. It's going to be a good game.
That's true. All right. Nivette, you want to?
Yeah. So just recently, the AP poll came out with their athletes of the decade, both men and women. So who is your personal athlete of the decade? It could be male or woman.
Male or woman, or female or man.
Male or female, or female or man, you know.
I'm a huge Serena Williams fan, so I just
love
her and everything about her. So
yeah.
We are right here. You can't see, I'm doing the eye-to-eye thing.
I see you. I would show y'all me, but you can't see me right now. Almost 11 o'clock at night overseas. I'm looking a mess.
No, but we are huge Serena fans, so we are down. We believe absolutely, and even if we weren't fans, just the facts is that she's
exactly
phenomenal.
Just facts.
She's a phenomenal athlete.
Yeah.
All right, Kim.
NCAA basketball picks. All right. Championship tournament. Who do you have on the women's side?
This is bad because I have a hard time watching because of the time difference. So I don't really keep up. I see every now and then on Instagram. I can even tell you who the top 4 in the rankings are right now, which is bad. So I'm going to go with Oregon because I'm going to go with Oregon because that UNESCO, I don't know if I'm messing her name up, but I have seen her play, and you just can't deny what she's doing right now. And I feel like when you have a player like that who's leading on the court and is in a position that is so significant to lead your team, I feel like you can always win a championship with someone like that.
All right, and for the men?
For the men, I have no idea. I'm gonna just pick Duke because that's what I do.
Right, that's what all Dukies do when all this fails.
Every time I try so hard. I really do. To be like, okay, let me just be reasonable, and not that. I mean, we're always in the conversation, but okay, let me look at it, and at the end, I always pick Duke. So.
We can win this game. There's no reason why we can't win this game.
Yeah, why not? Why not? All right, sure. Number 4, you got it in the bed?
Number 4. Okay, so who do you think for the NBA championship match coming out from the East and the West? Who you got?
Well, I definitely have the Lakers from the West, but from the East, oh my goodness, I have no idea. Like what? I feel like I need to bring up a cheat sheet on ESPN real quick. Who's in first, second, third? Do we have that?
We have the Bucks are in first.
I'm gonna go with the Bucks. I like Giannis. I'm gonna go with the Bucks.
All right.
That would be a great final.
Easy. Yeah, isn't it Bucks, Celtics, Heat right now? Is that right?
Yeah, and then Sixers.
And then the Sixers, yeah. But the Bucks is a good pick. All right, and the last one. I have an inkling that I know what you're going to say, but we're going to ask you anyway. WNBA championship.
Oh, my God. The Connecticut Sun. It's redemption season. We got it.
I'm rolling with y'all, too. I'll tell you what. I was watching the championship series, and it was electric. Like, I had so much fun watching. I wish I could have been there in person. And the only comparison that I have for it is Cameron Indoor Stadium. Like, when Cameron gets rocking like crazy, that's just what I felt, that energy. It just seemed like so much fun. Competition level was high. You all were playing hard, both sides of the ball. So I'm rolling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And if you roll with me and us, you can be there in person because I'll give you tickets.
Look at that. Look. I like that.
Girl, we will be there.
I can make my way to Connecticut to watch you all play. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And especially since the last couple of WNBA finals period have been like just legit hot.
They have. Right?
They really have.
You can't go wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again so much, Jazz. It has been an honor to have you on the show. You are an incredible person just as a human, but an incredible person to watch play, phenomenal athlete. And I'm excited to see where the rest of your career is going to take you, no doubt. The ceiling is the roof. See what I did there? Oh, the ceiling is the roof. So I'm excited to see where you're going next.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for doing what y'all are doing, giving, people like me a chance to share our voice. It's important, and we appreciate it for sure.
Of course. And good luck with the rest of your season overseas. Stay warm, stay safe. And I hope you all do well.
All right. Thank you so much.